recent Grand Prix. But he has a much heavier emphasis on the non-basic lands with cards like Wasteland. He has the full 4 Wastelands and the 4 full Factories, but he also has Ancestral Visions instead of Standstill. Meanwhile,
Erik Farnsworth playing the Stoneblade.
the actual Stoneblade.
Yep, with Mirren Crusader and Vendilion Click to supplement his Stoneforge Mystic, which it almost looks like it says Mystiz.
And it's one of those versions where his only equipment is 2 Batter Skulls, right?
Yeah. It's got the 4 Force, 4 Mental Misstep, 2 Spell Snare, 4 Swords and Plowshares, 4 Brainstorm, 4 Ancestral Vision, and
4 Jace.
4 Factory. Yeah, 4 Jace.
Yep. Nothing too
Wasteland.
unusual, although we are seeing another Manriki Kusari. He's got all the weird stuff, like the Crucible and the Elspeth and all those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
He's got those in the sideboard.
Yeah, that's interesting.
He's going for a much more consistent, aggressive opening.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that he has Mirren Crusader, though. Normally people use Mirren Crusader for the possibility of putting a sword on it.
Right, the Sword of War and Peace specifically.
Right.
Is like
He is actually a Sword of War and Peace short of being able to assemble the Sword of War and Peace combo.
yeah.
So I'm not... I mean, maybe he just... Like, it appears he has no combos with it at all. I mean, I guess in theory you could put the Batter Skull on him, but for the most part, he's just playing Mirren Crusader because it's just good.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a 4-2 pro-green, pro-black. I mean, I guess it might help him in the tournament wars. We will see. Benjamin Stepka, on the other hand, an awful lot of great creatures.
And playing first.
Yeah, so on our left we have the creatureless bug control deck. On the right, the actual Stoneblade. Well, with 2 Mirren Crusaders. Dude, I don't mean to have such an unnatural hatred for Mirren Crusader. He's just this guy, right? And he makes it so easy. Is this a mulligan? It would appear that Mr. Farnsworth is taking a mulligan.
Erik Farnsworth. Blue-white Stoneblade. I like watching these matches because I like the Stoneblade lists myself. So
It's really interesting. This is actually the two decks that are popularly using Standstill, where both players have adopted Ancestral Visions instead of Standstill.
yeah.
Which is much more entertaining to watch. You know, like you play Standstill, when you play the Standstill mirror, watching the Standstill mirror is like, go, discard, go, discard,
Right.
go, discard, go. Visions, on the other hand, you get down to business, you know, like there's none of that stuff. You just, like, in 4 turns, it's going down.
Strangely, Visions seems kind of bad against Standstill. Well,
It's actually not. People say that, but have you ever actually tried it?
No, I
Okay,
mean, I don't know that it feels bad. It always seems like, well, you just break even. I mean, both players drawing 3 cards.
But you could, I mean, sometimes you counter the Standstill. You know?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But you're right, but yeah,
I
if you
meant,
just,
like,
if
you
you're going to
don't
break a
counter it.
Standstill somehow,
Breaking
the
even.
best possible thing to do is draw 3 cards with all of your mana untapped.
Yeah, I like that logic.
It's really not that bad versus Standstill.
I think it's just a matter of you don't control when you break the Standstill, but
You do. You get to decide. Like, it'll be in 4 turns from when you suspend your Visions.
well, what I mean is he suspends Visions. Erik plays Standstill.
Well, no, it's still 4 turns from when you suspended Visions.
That's true. But I'm saying you can't control it.
You do. It's exactly 4 turns. You
know
just
what I
don't get to
mean.
control if the other guy plays a Standstill or not.
That's true. So once the Standstill is on the board and the Ancestral Visions is already suspended, you can't control when the Standstill breaks.
I don't know about that. You could cast a spell early.
Well, that's true. You can't, never mind.
It's like old
know what I'm
age,
saying.
you know? Like, yeah, eventually you'll be 100, but you might not. You might do something early on that prevents that from ever happening. So, turn 1, Ben leads with Underground Sea and Ancestral Visions. Looks like Farnsworth goes and gets a basic island. And is going to suspend a Visions of his own. It's definitely one matchup where it's useful to be on the play, if only because, I mean, it's obviously good to get the Stoneforge down early, but it's particularly nice to have your Visions go off 1 turn earlier.
Right.
But it's really hard for a lot of these decks to actually counter the Visions. I mean, they do have Counterspell, sometimes. They do have Force of Will. But one big difference between their decks is that Stepka has 2 Counterspells. Only 2. You know, he does have 2 Counterspells, though. But Erik actually cut the Counterspells. That's how he made room for the Mirren Crusaders.
Yeah, that is interesting. I'd rather have Counterspell.
I mean, they're different purposes. Obviously, you know, Crusader blocks a lot better than Counterspell does.
I'd rather have Mana Leak.
Yeah, I mean, you can't cast Counterspell here, not kidding.
That's right. So a second Ancestral Vision suspended from Ben, and then passes to Erik, who has the turn 2 Stoneforge.
And the Mental Misstep.
And the Stoneforge gets hit with Spell Snare, but Spell Snare gets hit with Mental Misstep.
Yes,
So,
the Stoneforge is going to be huge. Now the Stoneforge getting Batterskull right here is going to put a huge amount of pressure on Ben, but the advantage Ben has is that first of all, he's going to have a Visions go off before Erik does, and second of all, he has another Visions going off the next turn, so if he can, you know, he'll be under a lot of pressure by the time it comes to that, but at least he's got something going for him. In a couple turns, he's going to get reloaded. Now
so Mystic, of course, searched up Batterskull.
Yep. What Ben's really looking for right here with all this digging, he's trying to find Pernicious Deed. You know? Pernicious Deed, or in theory he could find something like Putrefy. Putrefy would be nice, he's got one of those. But he just needs to find ways to not die to the Stoneforge Mystic and the Batterskull.
Innocent Blood seems decent right here.
Absolutely. If he had a creature removal spell right here, I mean, that would be awesome if he has any of them. Innocent Blood, or Diabolic Edict, or... He actually cut some of the 2-mana removal to make room for more 3-mana removal.
Yeah, he's got Maelstrom Pulse in there.
2 Maelstrom Pulses and a Putrefy.
A little more versatile. A little more expensive.
It's interesting. No room for Dismember or Go for the Throat.
Huh, yeah. I feel like I would... Well, I see he seems to want the versatility out of something like Maelstrom Pulse and Putrefy.
I know that Paulo played 5 different removal spells as a one-of. You know, 1 Innocent Blood, 1 Dismember, 1 Go for the Throat, 1, you know, so on.
Players, if you signed up for draft open number 2, your pairings or your seedings are now being posted on the draft open board in yellow paper.
So Farnsworth finds another blue card so that he can actually protect whatever he does with a Force of Will. That's a real good spot for him right now.
Yep, so Wasteland comes down on Erik's side to destroy an Underground Sea, and then he passes with 2 mana up, conveniently just enough to activate that Stoneforge Mystic and drop a Batterskull into play. I think that's the plan all along, and it looks like that's what's happening here. Ben passes the turn, the Stone Blade player drops the Stone Blade.
Dude, I always wait in scenarios like that for the other player to just tap his 3 landing because of Vendilion Click.
Yeah, that seems like one of the nice plays with Vendilion Click when they activate their Stoneforge Mystic. Unless you see 2 Batterskulls.
Farnsworth getting in there for 5. Now, are we at 1 turn away from Visions, or is the Visions about to finally go off?
Should be about to go off, because that was, it should be turn 1, so 1, 2, 3, that's it, yeah.
Does he Force of Will or not? He decides not. He just wants to save the Force of Will for something meaningful on the board, like I guess a Pernicious Deed right here. However, the extra cards may prove costly, as Ben managed to dig into lots of action, has multiple Force of Wills, multiple blue cards. He doesn't have an answer yet. I mean, I guess he could play Jace and bounce the Batterskull. He chooses not to, though.
What is it that he played?
Brainstorm. Looks like he's trying to win the fight over the Visions, and his plan is to drop the Jace and hit the Batterskull next turn. Here it looks like he's trying to just stock up. He can't possibly be putting blue cards back, right? Okay. Did he put a Force of Will back?
I think he just did, yeah.
He's shuffling away Force of Will here. Huh. I mean, maybe the rest of his counterspell, all the blue cards in hand are counterspells, but just seems kind of wild. Oh, and he finds the Putrefy. That 1 Putrefy is so big right here.
Yeah, and
now, the thing is, he's got 3 mana open, though. Is he doing this on the upkeep in response to the Visions trigger?
It looks like it. So, alright, cracking the fetch.
Fetching a second... No, he fetches a Tundra. So Farnsworth has an island, a plains, a Tundra, a Stoneforge Mystic. It appears to be tapped, making it seem like Ben is actually doing this on his own main phase. A Stoneforge Mystic, a Batterskull, a Germ.
Okay, so the Batterskull gets hit with the Putrefy.
He actually did. He did that on his own turn.
Yeah. Now he's got the Force of Will for Eric's visions.
Yeah, but he pitched a counterspell. He could have just cast the counterspell. And then when he fights, this doesn't. This is a very strange line.
Could he have cast a counterspell? I mean, he doesn't have.
He didn't have to cast Putrefy.
Okay.
He's at 13 and even killed the.
Right, he could hold
Putrefy.
off on the Putrefy. Yeah.
I mean, why? Like, he made Farnsworth use 3 mana on a turn where he didn't even use the mana.
Wasn't going to use it anyway, yeah.
Alright, well, he wins the fight over the visions, though, which almost ensures that he's going to win the fight over the his own visions. Farnsworth down to just Brainstorm, Batterskull, and Jace. Just doesn't cast the Brainstorm. I guess it doesn't matter, because he doesn't have any counterspells, so it's not like he could find anything to stop it anyway. Definitely. Yeah, I mean, there's always so many different plays you can make with these blue decks.
Ben's got a ton of cards.
Yeah, but he actually had to Putrefy.
Mm-hmm.
And he just, I guess, I don't know. Alright, so that's Pernicious Deed. The actual Galdarn. Is there anything better than a Pernicious Deed? I mean, really.
Stoneforge Mystic.
Dude, who wins? Pernicious Deed or Stoneforge Mystic?
Is this before or after Stoneforge has viled out Batterskull?
Including the Batterskull. Don't answer that.
I like Pernicious Deed too, though.
So, Farnsworth on taps and draws does not put the Batterskull into play.
Wonder why that is. Wonder why he didn't.
I'm not sure what he's trying to prove. Don't you just put the Batterskull into play?
Yeah, why not? I mean, he just passed the turn.
And then you hold up the mana.
I mean, maybe he's trying to protect it still. I mean, because he only
Protect
has
it from
4
what?
lands.
He had a chance to do it and then have the mana open to protect it.
I mean, if he would have viled it down, he would have only had 2.
Stepka wouldn't have had enough mana to activate the deed for 5.
Stepka. Okay.
Well, like so many games of Magic, lots of decisions being made, lots of percentage being thrown around, but one player plays Jace, and that's probably going to be enough.
I wonder if there's a way we can avoid that glare. It seems pretty terrible in this match. It's like we need an umbrella over there. So 2 fetches cracking from on Ben's side of the board.
And is there a light directly shining on it?
Well, it's the chandelier.
Yeah.
I remember in the old days, when I was your age, I used to...
When you were my age?
No. Just metaphorically,
Okay.
sort of in general.
I was going to say, that was 3 weeks ago.
When I was your age, they used to make us take the sleeves off our cards
I remember
for the
from
top
that.
8s of Pro Tours because they didn't know how to beat the glare yet either.
Funny thing is, the cards still have a little bit of a glare on them. It is definitely better, but...
Yeah. Alright. So, Farnsworth dropping a 5th land. Hopelessly behind a Jace the Mind Sculptor at this point. Fetching. Probably just going to play a Jace of his own. If he's got... Like, that's the only card in his hand that he could have right now that's going to be sweet. He plays a Jace. At least they're just both looking at each other. You know, Stepka's up a few cards and has... Stepka has cards in hand and land advantage. However, Farnsworth has an empty Batterskull, so he at least has some counterplay coming. Definitely a good back-and-forth match.
Looks
Looks
like
like Farnsworth-
Stepka's, Stepka's got the advantage, but yeah.
Farnsworth is... Yeah, but I'm saying if he dropped a Jace.
Yeah. Oh, but he has a second Batterskull.
Yeah, but that doesn't do anything.
No.
That eats a loyalty counter from Jace, right?
Yep.
I could have swore Farnsworth had a Jace at some point. Did he shuffle it away with Brainstorm?
Wonder what he's thinking here.
Well, if he's got a removal spell in his hand, then it doesn't really matter. He doesn't even have to bounce the Batterskull. Batterskull is not exactly threatening from this position.
He's got force something else. Force Maelstrom Pulse. Never mind. There it is. Maelstrom Pulse. Oh, on a Batterskull.
Well, now this is just embarrassing, isn't it?
That's ridiculous.
Stick a fork in him.
Yeah, he's in game 2. That's how it goes, right?
Well, okay, so
Stick a fork.
he's going to have to win without Batterskulls.
Mm-hmm. Mirror Crusader for the win.
I mean, Mirror Crusader has traditionally not been the solution to Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Traditionally, yeah, I agree. Fate Celia. What you got? Keep it.
And that's,
Brainstorm. I want to see what you put on top. Oh, Force of Will, your Brainstorm for 5 mana.
you know what?
The alternate cost on Force of Will, right?
Yeah. Farnsworth's got Lawan Cephalid Empress in his sideboard.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly sweet with the Caracas he has main deck. Now the Caracas is usually for Vendilion Click,
Mm-hmm.
but it's kind of cool because sometimes these Merfolk people can actually beat your Lawan.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have Vile to Vile down creatures, but they also have Dismember to try to
Right.
kill it. Caracas to protect your Lawan. That's pretty sweet. It's taking advantage of her legendary status.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Stepka, on the other hand, pretty straightforward. Nothing too crazy.
Yeah, I mean, he is just fate sealing Farnsworth to death right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's already so far ahead that he
Yeah.
doesn't need any extra cards. He might as well just seal the deal.
Right. Farnsworth has a Windswept Heath there, so but every time he puts one to the bottom, there's no reason to crack it.
Dude, that's why, seriously, in the big leagues, you know the play. When they have a
always put it
Windswept
on
Heath,
top, yeah.
and if you got them as being a strong player, you look at it, keep.
Yeah.
You hesitate for a minute, look down, and keep. Or you just don't. You just stone face. You just pick it up, look, you see that it's a Jace the Mind Sculptor, don't care, slam it down. Because you're
Yeah.
greedy as hell.
Because then even if they draw it, they're like, oh, you have to have an answer for this Jace. You wouldn't have left it on top.
Yeah, I mean, that would just be terrible.
I actually almost always leave it on top, just because I like the knowledge of knowing what they're going to draw. As long as I have an answer to it, obviously.
You leave the Jace the Mind Sculptor on top?
If I have an answer to it.
Why? Why not ship to the bottom?
Yeah.
I mean, if you have enough counterspells where you just have the whole game locked up.
If it's Jason, yeah.
Jace
exactly.
is like, yeah.
If it's Jason, I'm winning with Jason. I'd probably put the Jason at the bottom. But a lot of things, it's like I just think it's fun to leave the Jace or leave.
Oh
the,
yeah,
leave the
most
call
of the time
on
it's like Vendilion Click.
Mhm.
Like you're supposed to try to let him keep everything if you
Mhm.
can, just because you want to know what they have so you can trade
Right.
them. Hey, do we have the capability of adding a soundtrack to this? Chase the Mind Sculptor, better than all. Chase the Mind Sculptor, better than all. Chase the Mind Sculptor, better than all. Chase the Mind Sculptor. All right, so Farnsworth continuing to play land and shuffle. Not really any hope. Looks like he packs it in.
All right, so
So Jace the Mind Sculptor,
better
than all once again. So we go to the sideboard. What's Stepka going to pick up here? His Bug Visions deck. He's got a. I mean, does he want? He's probably going to want Maelstrom Pulse, right?
Maelstrom Pulse, Vendilion Click. We were saying earlier how that helps the Jace mirrors.
Yeah, and he needs it as a solution to Farnsworth's Vendilion Clicks, not to mention the possibility of randomly killing a Jace. So he's definitely bringing the Vendilion Click and the Maelstrom Pulse. I wouldn't be surprised if he brings in Thoughtseize. I mean, Thoughtseize is good in these types of matchups.
Yeah, why not?
Plus, I mean, you could randomly hit the person with Batterskull, or you can just pick their hand apart to make sure you can win the counterspell fight. The problem, of course, is that there's only so many cards you can board out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, what are you taking out? I mean, you take out the Innocent Blood and the Davalkadief, maybe? A Life from the Loam, maybe? I don't know. If you're playing 2 Life from the Loams, though, you probably are trying to mean it anyway. And both players are playing Factories and Wastelands. An element we didn't really see as much of that game, but it's sure to come. Farnsworth, on the other hand, appears to have more cards that he'd want to sideboard out, yet less cards to bring in. He does have a Vendilion Click. He does have a Crucible of Worlds and 2 Elspeths. Pithing Needle. Pithing Needle indeed. Do you think he'll Phyrexian Revoker? It's tough to say. I mean, you name Deed, or if you're behind a Jace, but it's possible. He's probably going to want to cut down on these Swords to Plowshares, though.
Yeah, he's got the Manrika Gusari, though.
It doesn't do him any good.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Mixing them up.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't think Manriki Gasari is
Yeah,
that good in this matchup.
Not gonna work so good.
But yeah, he's mostly going to be looking to cut plows, I think. And the easiest thing he has to bring in, of course, is the Crucible, the 2 Elspeths, and the Vendilion Click. So even though he has more to bring out and less to bring in, he actually appears to have the right number of cards to change. Benjamin, on the other hand, a sideboard full of good cards without a lot of bad cards to cut. So it'll be interesting to see what he really decides to do with this one. You know, which cards does he think are actually the suboptimal ones?
Right. I mean, do you?
See, like Spell Snare is another one we always debate. Spell Snare's tough. I think you got to cut some Spell Snares.
Yeah.
I think you really do, because I mean, you might. Now the tough part is if you think that Farnsworth actually has Counterspell.
Mm-hmm.
What he doesn't know is that Farnsworth, the only 2 cast and cost spell in his entire deck is Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah.
That makes Spell Snare not particularly good.
Right.
Although Stoneforge Mystic is just about the best card in Eric's deck.
Yeah.
So it's a real tough balance.
Yeah, it's the kind of card you absolutely want the Spell Snare for, but if you cut the Spell Snares and you cut the Innocent Bloods, things like that, do you just... You know what I mean? It's like you're leaving him with the Mystic.
Well, you have Putrefy, Force of Will. You might have to keep some amount of Spell Snare. I mean, you might even want to cut Force of Will. Who knows? It depends on how you want to play it. So much of it is you just want to try to go a direction. You want to try to hit the person when they're not ready.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Thoughtseize and Vendilion Click, excellent ways to also fight the Stoneforge Mystic that aren't dead most of the time. You know, I like Thoughtseize as a solution to Stoneforge Mystic much better than Spell Snare.
Yeah, I like that too. Make it into a Squire.
Well, no, take it out of their hand in the first
Take
place.
it out, yeah, you can, that's always good too. But even if you draw it on turn 2 or after the, you know, turn 2 on the draw.
Erik, not surprisingly, choosing to play first, appears to have Brainstorm and a land, and any 5 cards in Magic, so it is a keep.
So he suspends an Ancestral Visions just like last game.
Yep. This time he gets to be the one, as we saw last game. The first person to bust a Visions gets to have the advantage. I mean, a lot of these Stoneblade type decks really do play a little bit of a fairy-esque game, you know? Like Stoneforge Mystic is your Bitter Blossom. Jace the Mind Sculptor is every other card in your deck.
Cryptic Command?
It's like Mistbind Click, Cryptic Command. I mean, it's like Mistbind Click, sort of, really. It's like Jace. Don't they play Jace now? Yeah, it's like their Jace the Mind Sculptor.
So,
Brainstorm, not surprisingly, getting stepped, but interestingly, he pays the 2 life. Both players stepping. Now, Farnsworth steps, Ben step. So,
oh my gosh.
So, Ben Stepka steps the misstep of the step that Ben stepped Farnsworth with.
We just, a playset of mental missteps were just played, yeah.
Well, oh, so Farnsworth stepped back?
Yeah.
Ah, so Farnsworth...
Match
So
them
Farnsworth
step for
steps so we just saw a stepping of the Stepka's step on the step that Farnsworth stepped, then Stepka's step of the Brainstorm with.
He matched Stepka step for step.
Alright, now you're taking it too far. That's just crazy talk.
Yeah, sorry.
Alright, so Farnsworth has
Crazy talk.
a very nice mix, very nice mix of cards. He's got Stoneforge Mystic, blue card, and Force of Will, with the Visions ticking away. Meanwhile, Stepka has nothing really exciting going on. Wow, that Wasteland is so big here. Now, the nice thing about that Wasteland is it shuts off Counterspell as a possible avenue. Farnsworth can go into a second main phase if Stepka tries floating mana, but he's just going to be able to drop a Stoneforge Mystic, and these decks don't usually play Daze anymore, you know?
Yeah.
So, the Bug player, slow down. He didn't drop his Stoneforge Mystic. It's interesting.
And the Visions, looming doom. Well, looming cards.
He didn't drop the Stoneforge Mystic because I guess he was concerned about Spell Snare.
Oh, fair enough. We only saw 4 mental missteps. We didn't see Spell Snares yet. Not in this game, anyway.
I mean, Spell Snare isn't particularly good against Benjamin either. You know, all
Right.
it hits is 2 counter spells and 2 life emblems. Probably boarding the Spell Snares out if you're Farnsworth. Alright, shuffling back. Looks like the showdown is going to be over this Visions. Dude, in my day, we didn't used to let the showdown be about countering Visions. The showdown was about Imps mischiefing Visions. You know what I'm talking about?
Imps Mischief. Oh my gosh, I forgot about that card. So there's that Vendilion Click.
There's that counterspell.
Farnsworth, and a counterspell for the Vendilion Click.
Alright. Visions.
on the stack.
Force of Will. It is.
Force
of
of
Will
Will,
back.
removing
And Farnsworth will be in a commanding position.
Yeah.
See, I never got that whole fighting really, really, really hard over Visions when you're going to lose. I mean, maybe if you think you're going to win, but... Dude, like if you have 6 cards and they have 9 cards, it's not that bad. If you have 1 card and they have 4 cards, you're a goner.
Yeah, so,
Farnsworth Stoneforge Mystic making an appearance to the party.
resolves the Stoneforge Mystic. So, that's the...
Oh my god, he got a Batter Skull?
I didn't realize that was in the list. There's 5 mental missteps on the table, you know, in various states of the game. You know, well, 4 in graveyards and 1 removed from the game, but that's kind of nuts.
Now, both of these guys managed to find room for 4 Force Souls and 4 Brainstorms as well as 4 Mental Missteps. So neither of them is particularly threatening to throw off the balance in the top 8 of the unholy Blue Trinity. So what's Stepka got to get going here? I mean, if he draws... He's got like a land in his hand, right? So if he draws like a Jace, he could just go land, Jace, bounce your guy.
Yeah, that seems...
Oh no, he doesn't have a land.
Oh, does he not? Okay.
He just says deeds and a blue card. Oh, he still uses a spell snare.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think he has spell snare. Yeah.
Dude,
That's
that's what I'm talking about. You don't want spell snare. Imagine if that
Especially
was a thought
after he resolved the Stoneforge.
Imagine that was Thoughtseize, man.
That'd be good.
Yeah, you know.
But Deed looks like it's
I guess. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Deed resolves and Farnsworth then plays Phyrexian Revoker, naming probably Deed.
Pernicious Deed.
Yes, thanks. Cool. Just a confirmation there. It is Pernicious Deed that was named.
Shocking.
Wasteland your Tundra.
Ensuring absolutely no possible way of ever having enough mana to be able to deed away Batterskull, we are now looking at... I mean...
Yeah, but he can't play the Batterskull until... Well, he's going to get it now. Never mind. He's going to have White Source right now.
Yeah.
I was just looking at the 2 islands. I was like, oh, he kind of got rid of his White Sources. Oh, wait. No, he didn't. And he's protected from Wasteland, too, with the basic planes. He just tutored up with the Windswept Teeth.
Oh. Farnsworth, everything going right. He's got a lot of different types of problems. Stepka really needs, I guess, Jace the Mind Sculptor, right? I mean, it's possible. I mean, I guess you know what he needs to do? He needs to cast Brainstorm, because every card in his hand is not what he needs. He needs to find an answer to the Revoker so that he can use the deed to buy himself enough time to drop a Jace to try to actually draw enough cards to somehow get back in this game.
So, Farnsworth vials the Batterskull in at the end of Ben's turn, and then is in the red zone with the Revoker, the Squire, and the Batterskull, or the Germ. And Stepka packs it in, so
we're going to go to game 3.
pretty epic mental misstep battle at the beginning of that game.
Mental misstep, slowing the format down, and we're going to now see a game where Stepka gets to be back on the play. So far, both of these games have been won by the player who went first and suspended Visions on turn 1.
Yeah. So they're going back to sideboarding.
Yeah, it's interesting. Standstill, very good against, you know, just normal decks, but in the control mirrors, having Visions, pretty sweet. Because like, if you have a Standstill and the other guy doesn't, it's not actually necessarily that good of a thing in these control mirrors.
Right.
Whereas if you have a Visions and the other guy doesn't, you usually win the game. And that's like the best thing you could have. And that's one of the areas where Visions really shines, which is why some of these players are taking the standstills out of their blue-white decks and their bug decks and replacing with Visions, like Jerry has been advocating, you know?
Right. What do you think about Factor Fiction in these lists? I know, you know, you guys played at least one copy.
Yeah, I mean, played one copy last week in a very mediocre deck that none of us did super well with. Factor Fiction's a cool card. It's definitely fun, but I mean, and I guess it might have been right for that deck, but I'm not sure that deck's actually right for the format. So I think Factor Fiction, good card. Not really sure it's the time for it yet, though. I'll tell you what the time for is for it to be unrestricted in vintage. Here's a question for the people on Twitter. What cards? Yeah, what would you unrestrict in vintage? Like my choices so far, like right off the top of my head, I think Factor Fiction is a gimme, and I think Regrowth is a gimme. And honestly, I think Burning Wish is fine. What do you guys think? Burning Wish, Regrowth, Factor Fiction, other? Which cards would you like to see unrestricted in vintage? Which would be safe? You know, not doesn't have to be the safest thing in the world, but if you suggest Mox Pearl, I'm not interested.
What about Mox Emerald?
No,
Okay.
I'm not interested. Mox Pearl's a lot like Mox Emerald.
I know.
Yeah, no, I mean it's interesting. It's yeah. All right, yeah.
Just trolling you. A little bit. We haven't seen any dismembers today. One that seems like, I mean, we've only seen one Merfolk list, so, and I don't think he was running Dismember.
Oh,
That was
surely
just
had
a-
to, right?
I don't feel like
Yeah,
it,
I'm
but
pretty sure he had
maybe I'm
Dismember
wrong.
to sideboard.
Okay,
I
maybe,
don't, yeah, I don't
maybe
think
it was.
I don't think it's legal to not play Dismember in a Merfolk.
Right,
set.
that's right, it is, you're right.
I don't know. I think that's actually in the floor rules. I'm not positive. We might have to ask one of the judges if they stop laughing. What's it?
Nothing.
I don't know. All right, we're going to be looking at Farnsworth is on the play this time.
Farnsworth was just
No,
on the
no,
play,
Farnsworth
so
was just on the
Stepka,
play.
Yeah.
Yep. So Stepka, he's going to really be looking for that Ancestral Visions, but the only ways he really has in his deck to gain advantages are Ancestral Visions, Jace the Mind Sculptor, and Life from Below.
Balance.
And Pernicious Deed, I guess, but
Balance mentioned.
Balance is one that comes up all the time.
Mhm.
And, I mean, you love to think about it. The biggest thing, though, is do you think it would actually be okay in tournaments where people play with things like budget prizes, you know, and stuff? Because Balance, how in the world are you ever going to beat a Balance deck unless you're playing with a $2,000 deck? But maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe that shouldn't be part of the equation. Me, I'd love to see him take a chance with Balance. Ban it in 3 months if you need to. Take a chance. Ban it in 6 months, I don't know. It's vintage. In 6 months, there'll be, what, 4 tournaments?
So here's a question. What would you play in Legacy if you were playing in a Legacy tournament? Like, say this morning, or...
The 4 Horsemen deck.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a good time for the deck. And I've actually practiced enough with it to be, to feel comfortable with it. But I think, I think it was a good time for graveyard combo decks this weekend. Like, look at these decks. Farnsworth, actual 0 graveyard hate cards. And Benjamin Stepka,
Same amount.
3 extirpate.
Oh, the extirpates, yeah. Didn't see those.
Yeah, 3 extirpate. And extirpate's good, but I mean, you do have Cabal Therapies and Thought Seizes and whatnot. Plus, you have the Show and Tell backup plan. And you know people with Swamp in their deck are possibly going to have some graveyard hate. And that's not to say Farnsworth is defenseless. He has, like, Pithing Needle and Revoker. Alright, so the game begins with Stepka, main phase searching, which almost surely means Brainstorm. I mean, not Brainstorm, Ancestral Visions, right?
Probably. It's probably not a turn 1 Brainstorm.
Yeah, probably not.
He could Thought Seize, right?
It's possible. Yeah, if he has Thoughtseize, I mean, Thoughtseize is hot. If he doesn't have Visions, then Thoughtseize is the ideal turn 1 play, just to try to get Farnsworth Visions.
Right. And it is
It is
Visions.
Visions. It is Visions.
So we've had turn 1 Visions in every game so far, and game 1 had turn 1 Visions from both sides and a turn 2 Visions.
Well, once you win the fight over the first Visions, it makes it a lot easier to win the fight over the second one.
So Farnsworth leads with a Plains, and looks like, is he going to Enlighten? Did he just... No, I was going to say, that's not Enlighten Tutor.
No, Pithing Needle, naming Pernicious Deed.
Yeah. For some reason, I think that needle looked like an Enlighten Tutor or something in his hand did.
Stepka, dropping a factory. The burden of proof is on Farnsworth here. He really needs a Stoneforge Mystic to try to actually produce. And it looks like he actually has it.
Needle did name Deed.
Yeah. So, yeah, Farnsworth really needs the Stoneforge Mystic here to actually try to start advancing the board a little bit.
He does have it.
The last thing he wants to do is get too cute and just kind of dink around. Like, he's got to get some business going. And it looks like the Stoneforger resolves. Gets Batterskull for a change. Stepka, without Deed, is without his primary line of defense against all things, and is going to be stuck looking for a removal spell to try to deal. I mean, he does have 3 Maelstrom Pulses available to him and a Putrefy.
Yeah.
So he's not without answers. But the main thing isn't so much removing cards. What he needs is a way to start gaining an advantage. Now he's got that Visions, so...
And he wastelands Farnsworth's Tundra.
Which is good strategy, just try to slow Farnsworth down as much as possible, because once that Visions goes off, he'll have such an advantage in resources that as much attrition type stuff that you can do early as you can, the better.
So, passes the turn back to Farnsworth, untaps, plays a Windswept Heath, and probably just passes right here.
Why don't you just put the Batter Skull in play? Put the Batter Skull in play on his upkeep. Dude, now I hope he gets Vendilion clicked.
He didn't.
You know you're gonna do it. What do you... Alright.
So he,
Well...
he still dodges one by not playing around Vendilion Click there. Because there was no Vendilion Click. At least not yet. Does Stepka have it? Farnsworth cracks that Heath for a Tundra.
One time. Have the Vendilion
let's see,
click.
here we go.
Teach him
Is
a
he gonna
lesson.
have it? Is
Teach
he
him a
gonna
lesson.
have it?
Teach him a
Is he
lesson.
gonna have
Please, please, please teach him a lesson.
Violin Batter Skull, nothing, you know.
Alright, so Farnsworth advancing the board has Batter Skull with a Germ, Pithing Needle, Stoneforge Mystic, a Tundra and a Plains. Stepka with Underground Sea, Tropical Island, Mishra's Factory, and a Vision's about to tick off. It's good. This is one of those games where both players are working their game plan a little bit. They both have something going on. Stepka looks to be a little bit behind, but things can change rapidly when the Ancestral Recall happens.
Yep. Pithing Needle on Pernicious Deed. Very relevant. Is that a factory?
It is a factory.
New factory, new Ars factory. So here comes a Mirren Crusader added to Farnsworth's side of the board. So
See, this is what I'm talking about. You could have any card in your deck, and you present a Mirren Crusader? I mean, I guess it puts him on a 2-turn clock? Man, why don't these... God, why doesn't he have Damnation? Dude, Polo had like 2 Damnations, right? In his sideboard? Damnation is super
Damnation
sick.
would be pretty good right here. So instead he goes Sower of Temptation.
Not bad.
No, not bad at all. I thought it was a Jace, and I'm like, that's all very awkward looking Jace.
So, stealing... And you know what? I hope you think about that the next time you play with Mirren Crusader.
So, Mirren Crusader now on Stepka's side of the board alongside a Sower of Temptation.
And I'm betting not a lot of Swords to Plowshares in Farnsworth's deck. His hand contains a bunch of cards that do not affect... Like, so he's got all kinds of legacy cards in his hand. Crucible of Worlds and Mental Misstep. And
Yeah, Phyrexian Revoker. That's a standard
all
card.
sorts of... Well, sort of. I'm talking about
actually
cards...
more legacy
like,
cards.
yeah, I'm talking about legacy cards, you know. If you had some standard cards like, you know,
Batter Skull.
Lightning Bolt.
Batter Skull, he just attacked
Gatekeeper
the
of
germ
Malachor.
He just did
Go for the throat.
What was that?
What?
He attacked with the germ right into the Mirren Crusader, and just lost the germ. Because the Mirren Crusader double struck the germ dead.
Did he not know that Mirren Crusader has protection from black?
And double strike. It was in his deck. I hope he knows. Well,
Alright, so
he offers up the germ to the gods.
Farnsworth attacks with a germ. Stepka snap calls. Which is a challenging play to justify when Stepka plays with innocent blood type effects, Diabolic Edicts and so on.
Did he see any of those though?
He didn't even gain 4 life.
No. Well, Stepka trying to press his advantage here.
I don't blame him.
No.
Ancestral recalled and now has control of the board, and the one thing Farnsworth had threw itself away.
Yeah, the visions did actually resolve, by the way.
Yeah. That had to just be overlooking either the germ was black or the Crusader had protection from black, or
Yeah, obviously he wasn't.
or how
thinking
double
that.
strike works or something. I mean, I can't knock him. I've screwed up against double strike plenty of times where you're like, okay, you're attacking with the Mirren Crusader and I have a Merry Angel and some birds. How do I make sure that your guy dies? Like, what?
Yeah, you can just block with the angel, right?
Yeah, but I always throw away a bird for no reason at all. They'll be tapped out, and I know darn well they don't have a gut shot. They never have a gut shot. Wouldn't matter if they
That's
did.
a
I only
problem.
blocked with 1 bird, so if they had the gut shot, I was dead anyway. All right.
So Jace added to Stepka's side of the board here, and he brainstorms.
That's true. That is a way that he was not already winning yet.
Yeah.
Jace the Mind Sculptor is so powerful in these legacy formats where people just aren't playing with lightning bolts and haste creatures and venge vines and comes into play abilities.
Or gut shots even.
Yeah, but I don't think Gutshot has been invented in any format yet, other than Limited, and I think it will. Gutshot's a sweet card.
So Stepworth's... Oh, I'm sorry. I'm mixing their names together now. Farnsworth's hand is, I believe, Misstep, Brainstorm, Revoker, which looks like it's about to come down and name Jace if it resolves.
Why is that happening? Why is he not brainstorming? He can't win with these cards.
Maybe he will brainstorm, but maybe he's trying to...
Revoker naming Jace.
Yeah, Revoker naming Jace. He's got Crucible in hand. Not doing anything really.
Now there's discipline with brainstorm, and then there's discipline, I guess. So we still are looking at a very, very good game. Stepka appears to have turned the tables quite a bit. That Vision's helped a ton. He has a good hand, good mix of things. Although it looks like this Maelstrom Pulse will be very, very bad for Farnsworth.
Yeah, Maelstrom Pulse on your Revoker. Do you have an answer?
Well, you wouldn't know because you didn't brainstorm yet.
Yeah. So yeah, unfortunately he's got to crack the fetch in order to brainstorm here.
Yeah, but he tapped his Tundra.
That's what I'm saying. He should have tapped
He
the
tapped his
factory.
Tundra to cast the Revoker and left a factory, even though all of the cards in his hand cost 1 mana.
If he would have tapped the factory, he would have had that fetch open.
I mean, I guess the factory holds off the Crusader, but you don't even want to kill the Crusader. I mean, the Crusader, first of all, is darn well not going to attack, and second of all, even if it did, you don't want to kill it. The only way you can win this game is if you kill the Sower and get your Crusader back. Dude, I don't know what's going on. Where are we?
Well, we're just thinking differently than this guy, apparently.
This guy, Farnsworth, what's his record so far? X1 or XO?
I don't know. What are the records of these guys?
'Cause this looks like a good mix for him. And he does get the Brainstorm. He's got a lot of options open to him. That's one of the things people like about Legacy so much. The people who don't want to play with a million decisions every single turn can play decks that don't require it. But the people who do, they get to do stuff like Brainstorm and which card do I pitch to Force of Will, and Ponder do I keep, and Jace the Mind Sculptor, which ability do I use, and what am I going to do next? All your lands do 3 different things. Even your creatures do 4 different things. Alright. Stepka fetches a Tropical Island. At this point, his board is 5 lands that just make colored mana, a Mishra's Factory, a Jace, a Crusader, a Sower, cards at hand. Farnsworth a little bit behind on the table with a Needle Naming Deed, a Stoneforge Mystic, just 4 land, one of which is a factory, and just a few cards in hand. Hasn't had the opportunity of doing all this Jacing and Visionsing, but certainly not out of it, as he does have a number of powerful cards that can turn the tables quickly. Most notably, if he can just plow that Sower of Temptation.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, sources say he almost surely boarded out his plows and has no hope.
He did brainstorm into a Fatter Skull, which
Does nothing, right?
does nothing. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, I guess he could Stoneforge it into play,
Yes, he has Stoneforge it into play,
and then attack into a Mirror Crusader. I mean, he
Right,
had
exactly.
he already had a Battle Skull. But that's the same one. He didn't go into it.
Oh, would he? I guess he just returned it.
Yeah, he returned it.
I
It
thought
was
he
another
just
shot.
brainstormed into it. Huh.
He
I don't see it in
probably
the
did. He
graveyard. I think you're probably. I don't know. I thought he just brainstormed into it. I didn't see it in his hand earlier.
That is correct. This is Bug Visions versus Blue-White Visions. Both of these decks are, often standstill decks, but both players using Ancestral Visions instead. Both are justifiable. I mean, they're very similar, and they're both undefeated.
Both players undefeated. So.
And this is round 5, so there's only 2 more rounds of Swiss.
There's Vendilion Click. Takes the Batter Skull out of Farnsworth's hand. Puts it on the bottom.
The card in the front, card in the back. Which card am I gonna get? Mirror Crusader finally getting busy. Attacks. Farnsworth's life total dropping below 20. Welcome to Magic the Gathering.
Attention Magic players. We've been very fortunate to be joined this weekend by Doug Schuler. If you'd like to get anything signed, get a sketch on your playmat, buy a print.
So Farnsworth untapping. A little bit choked on mana.
We'll be leaving in about 15-20 minutes. Again, if you'd like to get anything signed by Doug Schuler, Now would be an awesome time to do so. You can find him right next to the StarCityGames.com dealer booth.
One of the big advantages to these decks that don't play any creatures in the main deck makes it so powerful when you sideboard creatures, you know? Because like the blue-white deck has Stoneforges and Batterskulls anyway, not to mention Vendilion Clique and Mirror Crusader.
Right.
So people are going to have answers. If you try to board some spicy creature, there's a good chance they have creature kill anyway. The bug deck, it's really hard to keep in your creature kill or very much creature kill against them, which makes cards like Sower of Temptation just so devastating. Usually Sower of Temptation's big weakness is Jace the Mind Sculptor. Fortunately, Ben also has Jace the Mind Sculptor in play. Now, Jace the Mind Sculptor, one of his big weaknesses is traditionally Vendilion Clique, but fortunately Ben also has Vendilion Clique in play.
Farnsworth has a draw, by the way, but otherwise both players are undefeated.
Both players undefeated?
Yeah.
So we will certainly be seeing, well, not certainly. There's a very non-zero chance that we'll be seeing one or more of these players in the top 8. So what's Farnsworth realistically got to do to turn this around? Because he's losing on a lot of different metrics. I mean, this is a little bit like the whole Cobblade thing, where once you start losing on like 3 different areas, it's kind of, you're in bad shape, you know? You're losing to Planeswalkers, losing to creatures, losing to card advantage, losing the mana advantage.
Away from the loam, just from Stepka, gets 3 lands back.
Including Wasteland.
Yep.
Ensuring...
He's just going to bomb him right back to, well, he'll have 3 lands in play.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the Crucible, but he can only play 1 land a turn, and he's too far behind. I mean, the sequence of things he's going to have to do, like he has to... I mean, first of all, he has to not die, which would be really helpful if he had like Batterskull, but second, he needs to play a Jace of his own, because he absolutely has to get Stepka to stop chasing. Stepka is already so far ahead from all this chasing that I don't know how much more he can take.
So, Sower, Mirror Crusader, Vendilion Clique, all in the red zone right now.
Putting a lot of pressure on Farnsworth, giving him as little time as possible to try to find outs to all this action.
Yeah.
Sweet, sweet action.
And Stoneforge blocks its former teammate, Mirror Crusader there. Nice chump block, and gets in for 5 more, so Farnsworth down to 13, I believe. Crucible replays the factory.
So at least you can trade Vendilion Cliques here and brainstorm to try to find a Jace. But, I mean, the million-dollar question is, does he have any plows at all? Because if he doesn't have an answer to that Sower of Temptation, I can't see how he's going to actually turn the tables fast enough. If he can actually just kill the Sower of Temptation, at least he can do 2 things at once. You know, you can get rid of the Sower, stopping the Crusader from attacking you, and threaten to have enough power attacking to actually kill Jace.
Yeah.
Now you're actually, you can actually turn the tables with a play like that. I would be surprised if Farnsworth has very many plows in his deck, though, because
not even
he's looked
anything
at
like repeal, even. Like, I know that, you know, it's not the best play, but if you...
No, repeal would be fine, though, because at least he'd temporarily buy himself a turn worth of time, but he'd also hit Jace. 2 things, 1 turn.
Right. But no repeal in the list.
Tempo's so important in Magic these days.
Echoing Truth would be decent. What do you think about repeal versus Echoing Truth?
I think that they are completely opposite cards, and that usually you're not going to have to decide between the two, because I think repeal is a very incremental type card, and Echoing Truth is the type of card that you put as a one of answer to some hard problem in your deck. You know, like for instance, if I play a combo deck and you have Echoing Truth because you just need a reliable, cheap solution that can solve lots of things. Repeal, on the other hand, isn't a blowout versus people generally, but it's also very low opportunity cost, you know? Repeal is the much more conservative approach. Echoing Truth is definitely a bullet for a specific type of problem. Both good cards, though. Both excellent cards. And both kind of underrated, honestly.
We did see Farnsworth, I believe, attempt to trade Vendilion Clique, but it was forced.
Amazing how the guy with Jace the Mind Sculptor has all the answers.
And that factory comes back after being wastelanded for the 2nd time. Keeps dying, just keeps coming back. And here we have a brainstorm from Farnsworth.
Makes you wonder, why does he keep doing that? If this whole time he'd been putting fetch lands in play, he could actually have more mana. But it might just be that this is all the, this is his only play. Yeah, there's, like, I mean, if he doesn't have access to a plow right now, he's just going to die from the damage. and his hand appears to have a suspiciously low count of white cards in it. Factory, adding a mana. Oh, cracks the Windswept Heath in response. Does he have another Brainstorm?
He does.
Or is this another song and dance for amusement?
I think he has another Brainstorm.
I think this game really does date back to that Visions. You know what I mean? Because Farnsworth had a small edge early on,
Right.
but that Vision's so powerful. Once you're ahead by a bunch of cards, you can win the fight over Jace, and once you win the fight over Jace, you can win the fight over anything.
It seems to me like the Sower was huge, and then the misplay with the.
Yeah, but the
Germ.
Sower was just, and that was just a great move on Ben's part, boarding in Sower. You know, putting Sower into sideboard in the first place, and then boarding it in this matchup, knowing that Farnsworth would likely board out most or all of his creature kill.
So there's everything, and there's the
And that
hand.
is the match. Congratulations to Ben Stepka,
Yep.
advancing to 6-0
Yep.
or 5-0.
5-0. Yeah, and Farnsworth is 4-0-1, or I'm sorry, 4-1-1 now.
3-1-1.
Oh yeah, sorry, gotta add the numbers together correctly. He was 3-0-1, and now 3-1-1.